Good morning. Thank you for having me. I feel like a lot of Americans here in New York and across our country today. Not quite a moment of celebration, but a moment of satisfaction, and a long time coming in the history of America for a police officer to be held accountable for the murder of so many Black lives, that we have an instance that accountability can happen here in America.
Yeah, it wasn't just about this case, was it? It was about race, it was about policing. There was so much relying on it. People were cautioning others against being too optimistic because even with this verdict, there is still so much work to be done.
Absolutely. And I think that is exactly right. This case was not just about one case. It was about history in America. It was about racism. It was about police brutality. It was about accountability. It was about being held accountable for what happens when Black lives are taken by the police consistently without accountability. Generation after generation after generation. And so I think that this case is really a symbol of a moment of reckoning here in America, now that we have our first verdict holding a police officer accountable for the murder of a Black man.
It's quite amazing just to reflect on the lead up to this, because we heard the testimony from the 18-year-old teenager who actually filmed that 9.5 minutes on her phone, even though Derek Chauvin had a camera on his body. Is there still, I don't know what feeling it is that if that teenager had not been there on that footpath filming it, then we might not be seeing what we are seeing today?
That's absolutely correct. And I think it also, challenges this assumption that if we put body cameras on police officers, then we will know the whole story. Whereas in case after case and instance after instance, we have shown that the body cameras, while may be helpful in some instances, don't necessarily tell the whole story in case the video is erased or in case it magically disappears or what have you. But also the trauma. I think it's really important to acknowledge the trauma that civilians, and in particular this teenager in this case, had to suffer in, again, recording the murder of a human being, right? And the role that video ended up playing as this case rolled out. But again, I think the videotape again challenges the validity and effectiveness of police body cameras, because they only tell some of the story if the video is in fact kept. But also, again, the trauma that witnesses that choose to video record these instances for, again, the full story to be told, since we know that necessarily cannot happen from the body cameras that the police have themselves.
We're due to hear from the President shortly from the White House. What are people going to want to hear from him?
I think that, this is going to be a test in a lot of ways of Biden's leadership. Not so much in the sense that he didn't necessarily himself have anything to do with the verdict, but I think that America in itself, coming out of an incredibly bruising election cycle, Biden's task has been to reunite a very, very deeply divided America. That is split along partisan lines, that is split, unfortunately, among this binary of do you support the police or do you not? Or do you support Black Lives Matter or do you not? And so I think that what people here in America are going to be listening to Biden for is really his ability to unite a country along the lines of recognizing that Black lives do matter and that police can be held accountable and should be held accountable within, again, a system that has allowed for 400 years for Black bodies to be murdered without any consequences here in America.
Naila Amaru, I just want to ask you, we were hearing people chanting earlier, saying 1 down, 3 to go. What is anticipated? That is referring to the other 3 police officers, I understand, who were there when Derek Chauvin was kneeling on George Floyd's neck.
Yes, that's correct. That chant was in reference to those other 3 articles, those other 3 officers. Again, and I think that speaks to there is the person who does who pulls the actual trigger, or is doing the kneeling on the actual necks of Black men and of Black women here in America. But there are also their officers who are complicit when they do nothing and when they say nothing. And so this, again, I think speaks to the issue of accountability and making sure that police officers, even though they may not be the ones that are actually pulling the trigger, but they are still complicit and perpetrating this very violent system of police murdering Black men and Black women and getting away with it.